I don't want to come off sounding high-minded or anything like that. You know, I'm just looking at the world per se and what has just happened. Not just our country, but all over the world. Like this virus has come out and everyone got caught with their pants down. What kind of prep was made everywhere? Now, what if that virus was more deadly? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So we have to be smart.
Yeah. Would that unify the world against a common enemy, or would it separate the world more? And here's, remember, I had a guy named Peter Attia. He's a doctor, and he was a doctor in the trauma center, an ER doctor in Baltimore. And so I forget the statistics. He was dealing with something like 18 puncture wounds a day. So that's shootings and stabbings. This is Baltimore, you know, one of the worst crime rates it's actually one of the worst crime rates in the world. I don't know if you knew that. It's in the whole world. It's one of the worst crime rates. So that's what he's dealing with. And what he said was, when you have a family come in that's gone through this kind of trauma, usually it's the loss of someone because these puncture wounds or, you know, stabbings, or not everyone's as, hate to use the word, not everyone's as lucky as your brother was taking a 7-inch knife to the chest and surviving, right? Most people are going to die from that. And that's what happens. So what he said was, if the family is tight, if they're a tight-knit family, and this horrible event occurs, this pressure will make them even tighter. However, opposite is also true. If there's fractures in the family, those fractures under that pressure explode, and it destroys the families. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're seeing right now and what you're talking about is, let's face it, in the world as a species, there's fractures, right? There's fractures with different countries. There's fractures with different cultures. And all of a sudden, we just got put under pressure by the disease. And what we're seeing now is we're starting to see these fractures expand. And what from my perspective, the thing that we miss, and I keep trying to say this in different ways, and maybe I'll keep trying to say it. You know, in the military, what you end up doing is you end up dehumanizing the enemy. And it's kind of a goal, right? Kind of a goal to say, you know what? I'm going to have to go kill these people. That's what I'm going to get told to do. I'm going to go kill these people. So you know what? I'm not even going to call them people, because there's some part of your subconscious that says, hey, it's not okay to kill people. So you know what? I'm going to call them animals. I'm going to call them savages. I'm going to call them whatever. I'm going to call them Krauts, right? World War II. I'm going to call them gooks in the Korean War. We're going to give them names that's not people. So now we start to dehumanize them, and now all of a sudden it's a little easier. Makes that job a little bit easier to kill them. Okay, so that's war. That's what happens there. Well, what happens when you start looking at the different culture and you start doing the same thing? Because you're like, well, I got to take care of the people. We're getting pressured by this disease. We're getting pressured by it, and I'm going to take care of the people that are with me. And what do? How do I be mentally okay with that? I got a good solution for you. I'm going to dehumanize the other people. Yeah. And now we get separated, and now we don't talk to them. And so that's what, when you talk about, Jeff, when you go to these other countries and you start talking to people, all of a sudden they're not Russians to you. They're whatever, Ivan, you know, they're a person with a family, and they become humanized to you. Just like when they meet you and they go, you know, they have this horrible vision of what Americans are like, and then they meet you and you're cool, and guess what? You all do jiu-jitsu and you like footlocks, and it's like all of a sudden it becomes human. But we don't do that. We don't humanize each other on a broad scale, which is very strange right now, because we should have the ability to do that better than anyone right now, right? Because we've got all these communication systems set up where we should be able to say, hey, everybody, look, let's be together. But instead we show each other the worst part of ourselves, and we place blame instead of taking ownership, and that's kind of how we do. So instead of us unifying, as you said, Jeff, this pressure that gets put on us by something like this virus, all of a sudden we become more fragmented. And when we become fragmented, the ability to communicate with each other goes down instead of up. And the possibility of someone actually saying, hey, hold on a minute, other human or other thing. Wait, maybe you have some of the same, whatever you just said, Jeff, about like, hey, everyone's pretty much got the same goals, right? Like you said, like, hey, I want my kids to have a better life than me. I want my kids to do better than me. I want them to have a nice, be able to have their own family and kind of repeat what we did here. That's kind of a common theme. And it's the same thing in Iraq. Whenever I explain an Iraqi family to people, I say, oh, if you want to know what an Iraqi family is like, it's very easy for me to explain. It's like an American family. Like if you asking some Iraqi dad what his goal is to take care of his kids, build up a house, build the business so their kid, that's what their goals are. The same thing when you ask an American dad that. Same thing. So it's across the board. We get in these situations where instead of, we're on like a mass dehumanization mode.
Well, Howard, the relevance to jiu-jitsu is there's definitely a clannish aspect to all martial arts. I train Taekwondo, you're training Muay Thai, you're nothing. This kind of attitude of, and from my experience, going and learning a different martial art, starting from ground up, you see that the martial arts also all have the same goal of, I get into an altercation, I can take care of myself. Yeah. So it's, I think learning this stuff has kind of, it's changed me in a way where I'm trying to, instead of compare and contrast, I'm trying to see how we're more similar rather than how we're more different. That's a way to say it.